Alright, today I'm going to show you the apex predator of aquaponics. It's the best. He'll eat anything that fits in his mouth. He's so close, he'll let me get to him. Oh, he's gone, man, he's fast. Alright, in this first video, I'm going to talk about the bell siphon and aquaponics system. I'm going to give you all the measurements, the flow rates, everything you need to talk about, all the cuts so you don't have any problems down the line, make it easier maintenance. But first we're going to do a little walk around of the plants in the system so you can get a good view of through time as you watch my videos of how the plants will grow in the system. So it'll be a good little thing, and I'll give you a point of reference for size. Alright, today is Saturday, October 14th. My system's still going to be recuperating right now from the hurricane that just came through last week, or when was that? Like a week and a half ago? 2 weeks ago? So basically, storm blew through, and all those massive basil plants I had, I probably lost a third of the vegetation on them, and then I just went ahead and harvested them. It was time to get them out of the system anyways. Stuff like this kale plant was actually like bushy out to here, and as you see, it's not. Shortly after the storm, all the leaves started decaying, and I realized that the wind had just shaken them so much that they actually were breaking off the stem. So that plant will bounce back. It's actually giving the other one, that kale plant I planted at the same time, it was getting shaded out. It's giving it a chance to take off now. Same thing for taking all that basil out of here. It's giving all my, I started all these lettuce plants right here from a seed, and they were buried. So it's giving them sunlight now. Same thing for this kale plant. It was also planted at the same time. It was buried in the shade. Here's going to be my reference and point and size for everything. I just after I took the basil out, I went to the store and actually grabbed more lettuce and some broccoli. So I planted it all out in here, and I'll just start showing you everything. So some of these are going to be the dinosaur kale that I planted a while back. This one was actually growing pretty good, but it got taken out by caterpillars. It's starting to bounce back now. The garlic chives, these are first year plants, but I did buy them from the store, so I don't know how old they were when I got them, but they're definitely broad enough in the leaves now. Usually the second and third year the leaves get broader and broader. My Italian parsley, there's actually 4 plants in the bundle that came from the store, but you can see like all these stalks, they look just like celery. It's actually the exact same shape as celery, but they're about the size of a pencil. So these plants are doing pretty good. It's actually a long-term crop there. They'll probably bloom next year. My plants up top are doing great, and my little hybrid system I got going here, it's an NFT, but it's a flood and drain NFT. Prototype brought to you by me. But so far the kale that's up here was doing way better than the kale in the beds. I assume it's because it gets a lot more air, gets a lot more fresh water flow with nutrients being brought to it, because I think cycles about every 2 minutes or so, versus this one's about every 8 to 10 minutes, and it doesn't have the heat stress from the gravel heating up in the sunlight up there, so it's got a lot better airflow, which that actually will increase the nutrient uptake too. The kale plants down here are looking better now because they were tucked in between the giant basil bushes that I had, and they were protected from the wind, whereas the ones up there got shredded. Like that one right there, I can't get it to stand back up, and you can see down here on the bottom most of its leaves are torn and dying. That one right there, it's kind of perking back up now, but it's hitting the roof, so I'll probably take that out soon. I've actually got 25 strawberry plants that should be here in the next week or two. bare roots coming through the mail. We'll see how many of those I can get to survive. I'll probably take those out and throw some in here, and then I'm going to probably throw a ring of strawberry crowns around the outer edge of that. So like half of the strawberries will be hanging over the edge for easy picking. And it also, adding perennials to the beds will add more stability for nitrates uptake. Makes it easier for me. These are here I started from seed. I introduced them just a few weeks ago. So considering that they got shredded pretty good from the storm too, they're doing pretty well. They're just now starting to throw out some roots, nice and clean roots for now. The reason why I planted them in the whatchamacallit, peat moss pellets on purpose, because it's the most anaerobic environment I can think of. So if they can survive in this system with that, then I think that lettuce will do just fine in this system. I don't have any filters. Literally got a little box I built around the pump down there. It's just it's basically a cage around the box to keep large leaves and stuff out of it. And then it comes up and comes in through here. And then I got that one controlling the water flow, so that way I can regulate the water flow for the bell siphon. But everything's doing great. When I came out here during the storm, the wind had blown so hard, like all these pipes are just press fitted. So this actual drain pipe, you see how aggressively it injects air bubbles into the system. But that thing had popped off and was laying down in the tank, and the whole thing was shaking so hard in the wind that the actual standpipe over here, the actual standpipe coming up inside of the bell, had actually popped off and was hitting the top of the bell, and it was clogging up, and the bucket was overflowing. The lid I found somewhere else in the yard, and water was just spewing over the top of the bucket. And luckily, the fish tank was down below. I designed it like that on purpose. So that combined with the extreme heavy rain we got during the hurricane, my fish tank system was actually overflowing just a little bit. Had to take out like probably 10 gallons or so to get it to function properly. Let's put this point in reference again. These are some more of my broccoli I just planted. These 3 plants. That should be pretty. This whole area, all that bed right there, is going to be pretty well shaded out when those guys get bigger. This is my Dino Kale again. These have been in here for a little while, so they're past the point of getting shocked from planting, but they're getting bigger, pretty decent size. And these are some of the lettuce plants I just planted in between here. These are going to be mature within like say 20 days, 30 days of being planted. You can see the leaves are falling, so they're still through the shock mode. But for now, there's the cup next to them. And all of my Swiss chard that I planted, all 3 of these plants, actually came from one seed. I don't know if you can see that one in the bed over there. They all came from the same seed, and as soon as the seed germinated, I actually all 3 of them started coming up at the same spot. I just pulled it out of the bed over. It was actually from that spot right there in that bed. Pulled it out of that bed and came over here and planted the seeds here. And they sat there for a while, but they're starting to take off now. So you can see they're not very happy. May need a lower pH. I have no idea what my pH is in the system right now. Last time I checked it was like 6.8, 7, somewhere in there, but we've been getting all that rainwater. More of the lettuce. And so here's the system for now. Let's start talking about those bell siphons. One more thing too, as far as the fish go, they're getting some weight on them pretty quickly. The little feeder goldfish that I bought for like 15, 17 cents a piece, they've like doubled or tripled in size in the last couple of months since I bought them. And the koi probably doubled in length and tripled in weight, something like that. They're getting some weight on them quickly. They should be approaching close to a foot long after a year. Any of the leaves, I originally had an actual cover over the top of this. It was to keep all the leaves out, keep the fish shaded so they felt like they're protected, and lower stress, increase the growth rate. But the kids were coming out here and picking this thing up, and the door was heavy. It was a heavy-duty door. It was strong enough for them to walk on. But yeah, I was afraid it's going to hit their heads, so I took that door off. It actually set pretty well in this system. And you can see these ledges. These are actually part of the actual water tank down below. The same thing over there, popping up. And then when you close the door, it actually sat on top of those and set flush with the wood. It looked really nice. It worked out well. Alright, let's talk about some bells. Alright, so if you're like me, you've been doing a lot of researching online on the internet about bell siphons, and you've been finding all kinds of horror stories about people having issues with their bell siphons. So let me tell you that a well-designed bell siphon will make your life a whole lot easier. There literally is no moving parts, so a well-designed bell siphon is very low maintenance, and all bell siphons have a certain amount of flow rate range that they operate well in, but a well-designed one has a bigger range. And what does that mean? A well-designed one has even more reliability and even less maintenance. So this is my second system, my second set of bell siphons, and these are working way better than my original ones. So I'm gonna show you what I did on my original ones, what not to do, and what to do on these. What I did on these, that's the best that I've found so far. It's made them very reliable, and some considerations of what not to do and what to do, so on measurements and thought processes. These bell siphons are going to be, this is a 1-inch bell siphon design, 1-inch pipes, 1-inch or 2-inch bells, and 4-inch surrounding pipe. As you can see, I made these easy for maintenance too, just by doing that. These pipes come off really easy. It's another consideration to do. Alright, so for the first part, I'm going to talk about, this is the bell from my first system, and the bell from my second system. Believe it or not, the actual height of the bell shouldn't matter if your bell is designed properly. I can actually take this on my current bell system and say, here's the top of my pipe. I can actually hold this bell a ways like that high off the pipe from the ground, and it'll still start the siphon, and it'll stop it just fine too. So believe it or not, that doesn't matter. Whereas in my first system, it totally mattered. My first system, I had a very short operating range. It was very hard to keep it in tune. Probably like once every couple of weeks I had to go out there and mess with it to get it retuned again. Let's see here. Number one thing that I would say was wrong with my first bell siphon. For one, my beds were very short. They were less than a foot tall. So as you can see, my new ones are exactly a foot tall. It's a good height. So basically what that does is creates a better, like when the water in the actual tank is lower and you still got the siphon going on and this is full of water, the taller it is, the more gravity is going to pull on it, and the quicker it's going to, like, more aggressively it's going to suck air in and break the siphon. So it's going to be easier to break. The first one, as you can see, I actually sat here and I cut the bottom of it off, thinking that it's going to have great water flow like that. It's going to have more surface area of which to pull water in. And yeah, that's true. But while it was working, the whole thing would sit here and go like this in my barrel, which that was another issue. I didn't have a flat bottom on my tank. But barrels should work fine, but in theory, I've seen a lot of people using them. But my new beds, the bottoms are actually flat. It's actually helped out a lot with that because I didn't have any more of this going on. So my new systems, I took my little chop saw and I was able to do this, which chop saw is something I didn't have last time, so it made it easier to do the other style cut. But now this thing, when I put it in there, it is stable. Same thing for the bell siphon on the last one. Or the actual standpipe, I didn't know it. I didn't realize it when I built them, but when I set the beds in there, it actually turned these just ever so slightly sideways, and that right there was something that caused me a headache. It took me like months to figure out why it was so hard to tune it, but it's because this right here wasn't perfectly vertical like it should have been. That affects the water flow, and it helps create a suction issue. It gives you trouble starting the siphon. Alright, this is not actually previously used in an aquaponics system, but for my first system, I did also do the same thing I did on the bell siphon, and I made the bottom shaped like that. Don't do that. It lets rocks in, and that'll mess up your bell siphon, so it's going to decrease the reliability. Just go farther up, like I did on my new bells, and carve a large groove, but small enough to where rocks can't get in around the bottom, and then go up like 1/4 of an inch. Do another one, and then make sure you get the best water flow at the base, because you're gonna have least amount of roots there, and you want to get the water pulled mostly from the bottom if possible. And then you're gonna make slants. You can make them slanted or just like this all the way up towards the top. And then here, I'll show you what I got in my I'll show you the one I actually got in my bed right now. Alright, so here's the one I got in my bed right now. I got a little cap on it. Caps are good to have. I actually got 2 caps. One of them, sunlight comes through. That's the one that was on this bed originally. And it let sunlight in and algae started growing. So I changed them around. So the bed that has sun on it now, I got this cap. The one that actually has a lot of shade from all this stuff is the one that I got my clear cap on. But you can paint those even if you can't find the ones that are little block the light like this one will. Let me show you what I got going on here. Hopefully you'll hear me over this noise. You can see I got a little spiral thing going through there. It's my favorite, but it doesn't really matter. And then I don't know if you can see it, but I got actually holes drilled across the top here. Let me clean this up so you can see. That's just for emergency overflow purposes. But basically every once in a while, like especially if you plant this thing out as dense as I tend to, you're going to want to come in here and like twist this thing around, because it will start to clog up with roots. So having the extra slots at the bottom where it's really important is best, and then having all the other slots on the way up as backup in case it starts clogging. And then you can just come out here, and I have to use both my hands usually, but you just twist that around, and all the roots that are in the thing either get cut off or pulled back inside, and it sets the water flow back in as well, like it was. Otherwise you'll have your bell siphon just keep breaking over and over again, and your bed won't actually be draining. So let's take some measurements now about with my actual bell and my stand tube I have in here. First of all, the stand tube, take into consideration the type of base I'm attaching it to. That actually adds some height to it. This one's not the exact, it's the same style, but not the exact type that I'm using inside my beds. I'm gonna let my dog back inside. She's ready to go in. She says she got bored. Let's see here. For the ones I actually have in my bed, they're also the 1-inch. These are actually, you'll find these in the electrical department in either Home Depot or Lowe's. The one I got does not have these little barbs on it that would snap onto the pipe. You can see they actually grip the pipe really well. It's actually harder to get the pipe on though, but it pops in there, and you wouldn't even need this. That would totally hold the pipe in the system. The ones I got though, let me see if I can get that off one hand. Nope. Alright, so the ones I actually have in my system, they do not have these little barbs around the base, but they do come up about the same amount of height. And the pipe inside, instead of being pretty straight like it is in this one, it actually like slowly expands out as it gets towards the base. And so you can you push it in and you give it a little twist, like it's a trumpet or a brass instrument if you've ever used those before. But it kind of like uses friction to hold it in place. And I haven't had them pop off yet, even with the kids coming out here. Every time they come out here to mess with the fish and it starts draining, they're like, they'll pop the cap off, pull the bell out, and it turns off the drain, disengages the drain on the bed for a few minutes while they're out there messing with the fish until the bed fills. Let's see here. So basically you got that amount of height. Actually, let's break up the tape measure just for an estimate. It's going to be about probably 3/4 of an inch to an inch on top of that. That's going to be the height on top of this. So the height of the pipe on my bed on the right side is just shy of 8 inches. So about 8 inches, and then plus that, so we'll just say 8.5, 9 inches from the top of the bottom of the bed. And then for the bell itself, let's pop this lid off and get a measurement on that real quick for you. Alright, I tried getting it off. I would have to take my curved claw hammer and run it down the side of this to get it off. I don't feel like tearing that up, so I'm just going to take a measurement of the overall thing. As I said earlier, the actual height of this doesn't matter as long as it's tall enough to have good water flow coming over the top to go into the actual pipe. As long as it's designed well. So I'll take an overall measurement of this. Basically, you just want it, once the cap's on, to have good water flow over the top of the other thing. My overall pipe on this one is about 11 inches tall once the cap's on. And then for the height of the actual, I don't know if you're going to call that standoff tube, whatever you're going to call that. That right there is just got to be higher than the gravel, preferably. As you can see, on my bed it's probably 1.5 inches above the gravel. This bed is 12 inches, so that right there is probably 12.5, 13.5 inches, somewhere in there. And then some people will put on a screw-on lid for these, but these didn't even blow off during the hurricane, so I like them better. They're way easier to get into. And then, so for your later on we'll get into the different zones that you have inside of the bed and ways to keep the bed low maintenance. Give you a hint, it's worms. And then along with a few other things like the type of gravel choices and all this other stuff. But let's see what the water flow is on these bell siphons. Right now I've got them tuned to where they engage and like they'll actually start siphoning.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Have fun.
Okay.
I love you.
Love you too.
All right. So anyways, the water flow I've got on them right now, when I was tuning these, I set it to where it takes like 5 to 10 seconds for the bell to start the siphon, and then it usually takes like say 30 seconds to a minute to stop. And that's just, every bell is going to be different depending on how you got it set. But I could set it to where it'll still engage at a much lower water flow, and then the lower the water flow, the quicker the siphon's going to break. But I prefer to, like when I was tuning these, I did it on purpose to where it has an issue trying to break the siphon and has no issue starting the siphon. The reason being is as the actual water pump that's in the water starts to get more grimy, there's more grime in the pipes and all that stuff as the system gets older. These things will just keep on going even as the water flow slowly decreases over a period of months. Preferably, hopefully it'll be 6 months to a year before I even have to clean my pump. Maybe even never, because I put a cage around it. We'll see. Looks like my fish are getting hungry now. Little guys are starting to show up at the top. Here's a good view of them. You can see my reference in finger size. If you're wondering why they all look orange, even when like that white fish right there, that is it's like a pearlish neon white or super white butterfly koi with some yellow stripes down the side. You can barely see her now because I have actually put some seaweed extract in the water. And it tints the water, keeps the algae down, which I need to do that now that I've removed the lid. But it also makes the fish feel safer, and it's a fertilizer for the plants. The water is still crystal clear, it just tints it. It's kind of neat how that works. It doesn't make it foggy at all. And probably about next month or so I'll do it again. It's about 1 teaspoon of dried seaweed kelp extract. We'll make the water turn dark like this for about a month. Alright, so let's see what the water flows are. And actually, I just thought about it while I'm waiting on these beds to fill up. Let me go ahead and take. Actually, I already got the bell out of that one. I'll take the bell out of this one too. The stand tube in this bed right here, actually, I ended up coming back and making it shorter. I'd originally made it copy this bed, like I just made one and tuned it, and then I took the measurements off of it and built the other one up. But I ended up making this stand stand tube on this bed even shorter because my gravel, I didn't feel like buying another bag of gravel, and it was cheaper just to cut off about an inch of it. So this, as you can see, the gravel level on that bed is a lot less than in this bed, and you want to have a certain amount of depth before you start hitting water in the bed, especially with this one. The gravel is floating and all the larger plants are just falling over, and then so it just keeps the plants more stable, and it's light loose hydraulic and clay stuff. Super easy to work with though. So let me measure the stand tube in this one real quick too. The bell itself is still the same height. Alright, so this one is right around 7 inches tall. And this one works pretty well too. I will say that it doesn't have quite as wide of a range as the other one, but it's pretty darn close. Alright, so this one's topped off on the water. I'm going to show you. Let me grab one of these bills real quick. See, watch, I'll lower this down just into the water a little bit, and you'll see that it'll still start a siphon. Boom. Still started a siphon, and that's with my stand tube being extremely tall. That being said, it's already starting to suck air, and I can feel it. So just proof that the higher your stand tube doesn't matter, as long as it's not so short that it doesn't get a good water flow over the top. And also I'm going to take some measurements of my my stand tube up top here on my little hybrid system I built. That's got a short little bucket in it. I think the bucket itself is only 11 inches tall, so the stand tube in this one is really short. And it's obviously working just fine. Every 2 minutes it's working. So let's go ahead and check it out and see how long that stand tube is. Alright, so my stand tube up there has been removed, so it's officially an NFT system for a little while. That one's actually a little bit longer. This one's about 7.25 inches long. And 7.25 inches long, but its stand tube is drastically shorter. Still has a good water flow over it though. How tall is that one? That doesn't matter, I already told you. This one is about just shy of 9 inches. So this actual bell is just shy of 9 inches with a stand tube that's 7.25 inches. And that's with the cap on, obviously. I'm gonna throw this back together. Actually, before I throw it back together, here you go. This is the same one I have in my main beds. You can see what the style of fitting it is. This is electrical leak tight, and it does a pretty decent job. But I obviously, when I put them in the beds, I put a bead of silicone all the way around. And if it ever did start leaking, it'd be a slow leak. And aquaponics systems always seal their leaks naturally. And you can see this little fitting that I put in right here. I basically, like where it comes out of the bottom, I did the same thing on the other beds. I got this little PVC fitting and screwed it on, and then a little piece of pipe in there to press these together. Did an immediate elbow go into the drain. Alright, so this isn't going to be exactly scientific, so I don't know if you can read it, but it says 1 cup to this line right here. Alright, so I just crunched the numbers, and I redid the measurement a bunch of times, except I actually broke out my phone and did the stopwatch on them. To get 1 cup of water in here for the bed on the right, it took about 1.6 seconds on average, and then on the one on the left, it took almost exactly 2 seconds on average. So I did some calculations. There's 16 cups per gallon. And I crunched all the numbers, and it ended up being about 140 gallons of water an hour going through this bed, and about 112 gallons of water an hour going through that bed. Both of them could still operate off a little bit less water, but that's a pretty good average if you're trying to figure out what size of pump to use for your system. Let's see here. So my pump is actually uses 25 watts, and pumps out 440 gallons an hour at 0 head height. As you can see, I got about 2 foot of head. So it actually pumps out a little bit less. It's called a Aquaponics pump. You can go on Amazon and look it up. It's the 440 gallon per hour one. And see, there's actually a chart for the amount of gallons per hour it pumps out at 2 feet. But I also made the modifications, so it probably pumps out a bit more than that. It's always good to oversize your pump. So there's another. Let's get in here. All right. So for placement in the actual system, I had it in my mind that I'm going to be probably closing this off a little bit during the coldest parts of the year. I am in Mobile, Alabama, so it's nice and hot here most of the year. But so I purposefully positioned my bells in an easy to reach place, so that way because obviously if I close this up, the only place I'm going to be opening is right here to feed the fish every day. And I made it so that my bells are easy to get to from this place. I also aimed the water that's coming off the bells to where when it's coming out of this one right here, it's actually swirling the water around clockwise. And then when it's coming out of that bell over there, it's swirling the water around counterclockwise. And all that does is goes back and forth slowly, and it slowly pushes everything towards the center where the pump's at. And I also have a little air bubbler in there with air stones, as you can see, which keeps the water pulling towards the middle too. So my tanks are actually very clean. There's not one spot of crud floating around in there unless it's too big to go inside through the cages. I've actually seen a few of these, some of these leaves fall off, or some of the kale leaves fall off in there, and the fish actually gobble up most of the leaves. They'll still leave the stem behind though. And so let's get down in here and take a look at, as you can see, I have that one little screw-on piece that I screwed onto the bottom of the drain there, and immediately put an elbow on, and then put a pipe coming straight off at this angle here. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter how long that is, as long as you have that sharp elbow. That's another thing you need. And you technically don't need this little downward angled piece either. It just helps you control where the water's going better. Just remember, your bell siphon's also never going to be able to break if it can't suck air in through this way too. So it's so I purposely went to this little notch on the top of these little elbows here, and drill a hole in there just in case the water level ever gets higher. It'll actually still be able to suck some air in through there. But basically, whenever I'm topping off my tank, I'll set it up to where the water's just right below that. I made it as high as I can go. So in this 150 gallon tank here, I can only hold about 140 gallons or so. So that's something to consider. Technically, I could, if I wanted to, get the water level to go up to just shy of the top of this. But what I would have to do is put the pipe coming straight out with a T going straight up and straight down. And then I could put another one of these angling it that way still, but that way it would still be able to suck air in, as long as it's able to go back in that way. I can see this one takes 5 or 10 seconds to start up. And this is the one with a low flow. Good operating bell siphon. Looks like the fish are getting a little hungry. Something like this on your porch will really raise your quality of life for you and your family. So that's something to consider, is the way these are aiming. And then as a backup for the system, since I don't have a separated sump tank, the fish are in the sump tank on this one. I want to keep the fish protected and increase their chances of living a nice long life. So just in case I ever go on a trip or something and this gets clogged up with roots, to keep this bed from overflowing and spewing water everywhere, I also put a secondary drain. This is just like the stainless pipe that's in here. It literally is just on a fitting, and then it also goes down into the bottom. I did put one of the what's it called? Liquid tight electronic seals. I got one of the ones with the elbow on it, and I just pointed the elbows going that way. And that way I'll know to tell the difference. And then another thing to talk about is actually set these up to where I can pull these off and work on them easy too, which just came in handy. It's come in handy like whenever I'm working on the system. So here's a good view of it. Just short little guys. I've actually I've changed the length on these a few times. Just playing around. But you can see the hole I drilled. Drilled that out. Let me put this back in. Just gotta press fit that and twist it a little bit. That's good. Alright, so basically, typically for the fish tank, you want it to have at least one water change per hour. Right now these fish are younger, so I'm using a higher protein fish feed, so it's good to step it up above that. This one bed alone does 1 cycle per hour for that main tank out of all of its flooding and draining. So that all the bonus over there on the other side is just extra. So remember, these are like the lungs of your system. Every time the water comes up and goes up and comes back down, it's pulling air in around the roots, helping everything breathe, and then it's keeping it well oxygenated. Alright, please subscribe to stay tuned for more future videos.